Welcome back to the channel. A little different video this time. We're going to actually do some reassembly. This piston assembly is going to go back in the engine. If you remember, I made the piston. I've got the rings installed and the connecting rod put on with the wrist pin. The whole assembly weighs 54 pounds and is 32 inches long. I'm going to use my big ring compressor to compress all the rings. It's just barely long enough to do this, so hopefully we can get it put back in the engine. Here's a little closer look at it. You can tell that the piston is oriented correctly. There's the oil grooves on the top. I need to be sure and keep that oriented correctly in the cylinder. So let's get to work. Here we are looking at the engine. Piston goes in through the back of the crankcase into the back of the cylinder. There's a slight taper on there so to help put the piston in. I did this on my 4-horse Mogul several years ago when I switched out rings, but it did not weigh 54 pounds and was not 32 inches long. So we'll see how this one goes. Should be a bit of a challenge though. So here we go. Goes in the top of the crankcase, and then I'm going to try not to drop it. I do have a board in the crankcase bottom there in case I was to drop it. It also will help line the piston up with the cylinder. So it's quite slippery and quite an awkward thing. Well, dropped it anyway, but got it in there, no foul. Just get it lined up now and see if we can get it put in the cylinder. And here I am just checking some alignment. Those boards in there I have them positioned so that they will basically put the piston in the right height for going in the cylinder. There is a taper on the front of that piston that'll help guide it in before the first ring. But here I am taking out one of the boards, and we'll get to putting it in here in just a second. Sorry about the position of the light, but you can see I'm just trying to tap that rod in, and it's going pretty hard, and I am going to hit a hard stop here in a minute, and I'll replay it so you can hear that sound of the metal on metal. So here you can see the piston went in about to the third ring and then stopped. I got some paper in there so just for some contrast in the video. But going to have to investigate why that happened. It was a very hard stop, no going past that, so some binding up or clearance trouble or something there. So going to have to dig into it now and try to figure out what's going on. Here's a view in the cylinder with the piston removed. You can see a little bit of rust there. You can't feel it. It's more like a stain. I don't think that was really the problem, but I'm going to clean that up. And streaks in the cylinder there are some heavy oil that I used for lubricating the cylinder and the piston up when I was trying to put it in there. The cylinder's quite smooth and no pitting in it or anything, but I think I'm just going to at this point pull the cylinder off the base. I didn't really want to do that, but it's just going to be so much easier to work with it off the engine to put the piston in than trying to keep going back in the crankcase and possibly mess something up. Plus, it'll give me a better insight as to what's going on here. So we're going to take the cylinder off and get to trying to figure out why the piston won't go in there. I took the 6 mount bolts off and got the cylinder separated from the base here a little bit. Got my engine hoist helping me out. The cylinder, I'm guessing, weighs about 350 pounds. It's quite awkward, and I've got a bar in the top of the water hopper there with a strap holding it up. This is how I put the piston in my 6-horse Mogul several years ago when I rebuilt it. I had the cylinder off for some repairs, and I stood it up and put the piston in it and then put it all back in the engine, and that's what we're going to do on this one. So just spreading them apart here and get it off of there, and then I'll build a wood kind of support or skid underneath the head end of the cylinder, stand it up so it'll stay vertical, because it won't stand up by itself because of that water hopper. It'll just fall over, and I don't want to scratch my paint, and I sure don't want to scratch my pinstriping. So I'm going to take some care here and take my time, and there it came loose. Just going to pull it back and get it set up, and then I'll also rehone that cylinder. Try to clean that rust bloom up, even though I don't think that was really a problem. But we'll clean it up anyway, because it's just easier to do it now with it off the engine than trying to reach that far with a hone, even though I did make an extension for it. So we'll get it pulled off of there, and then we'll look at the cylinder. And there it goes, it's separated, so it wasn't too bad. Should have probably done that to start with, but I just didn't really want to take it apart. So here's a view of the cylinder, and I rehoned it. Not a perfect crosshatch on the pattern there by doing it by hand, but did clean up real nice. It's quite smooth, and no pitting, as I said, so I'm pretty pleased with that. I don't think that rust bloom was the problem, but just trying to eliminate several things here. And I'll just have to do some inspections and try and figure out why that piston got stuck. So fast forward a couple weeks, this one really had me stumped. I thought my math was right on my grooves, and I thought I was real careful when I made that piston. Ended up talking to a couple of good collector friends about it, and come up with some things to check, and I sure enough had some machining problems here on the piston when I made the ring grooves. First problem was the sides of the grooves were tapered in. As you can see, they weren't perpendicular to the skirt. The second problem was that the bottom was cupped and not parallel to the skirt of the piston, so the rings couldn't get down in the groove because of one or both of these problems. Each groove, I think one of them had both problems, but I think all of them had the second problem, and it just wasn't letting the rings go in far enough, so then they wouldn't collapse in and go in the cylinder. It's a pretty tight fit, but I went back with a tool and really took my time and was real careful about it, and trued up the sides of the grooves and trued up the bottom of the grooves. Even though the picture doesn't show it real well, that bottom of that groove is now parallel to the skirt, and the rings go on and spin freely. That was one problem I had that I didn't know that I had, was that the rings were too tight because of this taper, and they would not spin, and you want the rings to spin on the grooves. You don't want them being real loose, but you don't want them to be binding up or anything, and that's what mine were doing. So I spent some time machining. I think it's the only thing I didn't do quite right on the piston. I guess we'll know when the engine runs, but anyway, it was correctable, and we'll go back together with it here in a little bit. Here's a quick view of back on the lathe, just truing those grooves up. Took about 3 hours to do that, but I really took my time and just touched each one up, fit each ring to each groove that it was going to be in, and just really took my time. So we'll see if it pays off. I had these rings on and off several times. They're quite hard to put on. They're stiff and they're sharp, and you don't want to break them because they are kind of brittle because they are cast iron. So have four of them on. I'm putting the last one on now. You can kind of see how I do it. But the other ones I had to use my zip tie method for putting them on. But this one you don't have to. And you just got to watch it because they will pinch your fingers and they will cut you. So there it is, and you can see that it spins freely now. So here we go. Going to take the piston, put it in there. It's a little easier this time because it's all out of the crankcase, and got a wood skid built underneath the cylinder to give it some stability. Pick this thing up, get it put back in there. I got it all greased and oiled up, and see if we can get it to go back in there. Same sort of deal. Going to take the block of wood, put it on there, and my dead blow hammer, start driving it in. Just kind of awkward to be pounding like this, but it is moving. Of course, it did before as well. It went in about 1.5 inches or so, so nothing new there. So now it's moving pretty good. That was a little easier than it was before. And there goes the board, but just get that put back on there. Get to hitting it again. It has moved farther than it did the other time, so I'm pleased with that. And it is going in now, so that's great. So we'll just keep driving it in. It is going in. It's still pretty stiff. I will have to run this engine in a little bit, just without its own power, to seat those rings a little bit. It's just going to be too hard to try to get it to start with that much drag on the system. So just orienting the piston right there. I marked the rods so I know which way's up, and it's driving in, and it's going in. So there's the ring compressors free, so the whole piston is in the cylinder now. So it's a pretty good feeling. I'll go ahead and drive it down a little bit more so it's easier to put back in the cylinder, but it's not coming out of there. It's got quite a bit of drag, so we have to break those rings in before we run it. So have to build a jig for that, but it's going in. So some success for today in the shop. So here I am putting the cylinder back on the base. I left one of the boards on the cylinder so I can rock it back and forth. It didn't pick up quite straight. It's kind of a obnoxious thing to pick up, and certainly is not able to be picked up straight. So I'm going to use that for some leverage, but I'm just lowering it down here, getting it lined up to go on the bolts. It is a pretty close tolerance fit on this base. They're both machine surfaces, so just takes a little bit of time to get it lined up and do it right. Haven't scratched the pinstriping yet, so I'm just going to keep taking my time. Boy, this was quite the ordeal. It took me about 2 weeks. YouTube doesn't show the timeline, but it took me about 2 weeks and a lot of phone calls to try to figure out where my problem was. I'm just thankful that the thing on the piston that needed corrected was not detrimental to the whole piston build, and that I didn't have to build a new piston, but that I could modify it and just basically machine it correctly. So we'll get this cylinder on here. And just rocking the cylinder back and forth, trying to get it to go on those studs. It is a close fit, so just got to rock it back and forth carefully here. It's almost ready to go. Almost. There it went. So it's back together. I'll just raise it up here a little bit just to keep it in line straight, and then start putting some nuts on and tighten it back down, but it's all going back together now. And here I am putting the 6 nuts back on, securing the cylinder to the base, and it'll be all back together. I'm glad went pretty smooth. Didn't mess up any pinstriping or too much paint, just some paint on the nuts there. I can touch that up. So piston is in the engine, and just a little bit of reassembly today, as opposed to what the whole video series has been, which has been taking apart and fixing. And here we go. Engine base and cylinder are back together with a piston inside. So made a little bit of progress in the shop today. So I'll just close with my very poor drawing of what the problem was with this piston and why that wouldn't go in the cylinder. I did learn quite a bit about machine and piston today and in this series, and you know, it comes down to, like a collector friend of mine told me one time, if you don't have compression, you don't have anything on these engines. There's just some things that need some precision, and you know, cylinder condition, piston fit, ring fit, valves, seating properly, it's all comes down to proper machining. And I just did not pay enough attention. I got fooled in how I was measuring it and how I thought I was doing it correctly, and it just didn't work. So anyway, got it resolved, and the piston is in the engine, and next we'll get the crankshaft put in. And thanks for watching the video. Thanks for making it this far in the video. Seems like I think my average view time for viewers is about 4 minutes of my videos. So I don't know if they're boring or they don't move fast enough or what, but trying to document this as best I can. It's not a afternoon project to rebuild one of these engines. It takes a long time. So I appreciate everybody staying on board and staying with me on this journey. Like and subscribe if you like the channel. Sure does help it out. I like to see the comments as well. And we'll see you in the next video.